Okay, in this video, we're going to cover a quick, easy, and free way to make your microphone better with audio processing in 5 easy steps. This is not for filmmaking. This is for content creation on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And this video is for beginners, so we're going to just do the bare minimum to get you started and leave out the more advanced tactics and tools. We'll save that for later, maybe. At the end, we'll compare the sound coming out of my AT2020 setup here. It's like a $200 setup with the sound coming from the MKH 8060 setup. It's like a $1,700 setup, just so you can hear how effective these few simple steps really are. Quick disclaimer, I didn't buy any of this gear for the purpose of shooting these videos. This is just stuff I've picked up over the years to make videos for clients. Nobody needs a $1,700 microphone setup to make little videos like this. Oh, and another thing I'll say is while we're doing this, use the best speakers available to you. So use your computer speakers, headphones. You can pick up a cheap pair of headphones made for this, like the Tascam TH200X. I think they're like $50, but hey, use whatever you have. I usually use the monitors connected to my computer, but today I'm going to use earbuds so the sound from the computer doesn't mess with the audio we're picking up on these microphones. And you may be asking, well, Jeff, on Instagram they have an AI audio optimization tool. Why don't I just use that? And it's a great tool. These kind of tools actually work really well. And if you get your audio sounding as good as possible before you use them, they work all the better, if you so choose to use them. We're going to be using DaVinci Resolve in this video, my second favorite program after Steam.
My second favorite civil engineer.
DaVinci Resolve might actually be my favorite. You can do everything we're going to cover today in the free version, so go ahead and download that if you want to follow along. If you have one of the Elgato Wave microphones, you can use their Wavelink software, it's free. But whatever program you decide to use, you're still just going to follow these same basic, simple steps. So the steps are, set your audio levels correctly if you can before you record, set them correctly in the program, EQ or equalization, compression, and then the last thing a lot of people forget is using a limiter. We'll learn in a little bit why that's important, so follow along. So here we're in DaVinci, and the first step is recording at the proper levels. I figured an easy way to show you that is we're just going to pretend like this is what you're seeing when you're recording the audio. You're going to keep track of your audio levels. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get it as loud as possible without clipping. You don't want to go too loud because then it becomes distorted. So as we're playing this audio, we can see I recorded this a little low. So what you would do is you would increase the gain, raise the volume levels of your recording. You want it to be somewhere around probably like -6, even -12 is fine. For instance, in a podcast, there's usually not a super big difference in volumes. People usually talk pretty evenly. But if it was a really dynamic scene where people are yelling and then whispering and stuff, you would set it a little lower to save the audio from clipping. So I've just gone up here and I've set the volume to 12 decibels higher. And you can see our levels are pretty healthy now. If you're recording on something where you can't see the levels, then just set it as high as you can without it sounding distorted, and then just lower it a little bit just to be safe. So now you've recorded it, you pull it into DaVinci, you've edited your video, and now you're ready to start processing your audio. So usually what I'll do is I'll put like each speaker on their own track. You can select all the audio clips, come up here to volume, and since we just discovered I was about 12 decibels low, I'm just gonna hit 12 decibels and monitor it. So play it, see where it lands, and set the audio levels correctly in the program. Then we're gonna come over to the Fairlight page. So for step 2, equalization, you can find it over here on the right side. You double click where this little blue line is here, and it brings up our equalizer. And we're not even going to go over sweeping in this video where you pinpoint specific parts of the audio and really targetedly like pull it down to pull out certain frequencies. We're just going for a broad and easy approach. The other way takes a lot more practice, but this way will get you started. So in the equalizer here, from left to right, this graph represents your audio frequencies from really low and bassy to really high. So you basically have bass, mids, and treble. Now, usually what everyone does is you do what's called a high pass filter. So you take out the very low bottom end because these are mostly just rumbles. And you can set the frequency here to anywhere between 80 and 100. So I don't know, I'll just go 80. And then what you're gonna wanna do is just really sort of like relax and focus in on how the voice sounds and think about how you would rather have it sound. So let's just listen real quick. Your screens are this far apart. Now, sometimes you'll get lucky and you and all the people around you, your screen. So I'm hearing it probably needs a little more bass, and there's a tinniness somewhere else up in the higher end that's kind of making it sound like I'm talking into like a box like this a little bit. So just sort of focus in and just play around with it, you know? So this is how it works. You can pull up each of these here. This adds volume to this set of frequencies, and this takes volume out. And you have this thing called Q factor here that targets it more or makes it more broad. In this video, we're just gonna do broad, simple steps. And the thing is, you don't wanna go too hard on anything specific unless your audio is like really bad. Same kind of deal as what we did in the skin texture video. You just wanna do the minimal amount to achieve the effect. Because if you pull too much out of a certain frequency, it starts to sound less full. Screens are all kind of off in the same way.
But somewhere else, there's a bunch of people whose screens are all off in a different way.
And these people are gonna think that your video looks too magenta or whatever. Calibrated monitor puts your screen. I'm gonna move this up here a little bit
and reduces the average possible variance.
And then we're gonna look for that tinny sound.
Screens to a minimum. On top of that, there's different popular screen technologies. We're not even
gonna
get into
right here.
Projectors right now. So right now we have LCD and OLED. This changes not only how the screens render colors, but how they render contrast. So how bright do they make the bright parts?
And then sometimes I'll just put a little bit of the high end up there just to make it sound a little more clear.
OLED or some contemporary form of OLED is...
Now the thing is, I can't tell you exactly what to do with this because 1, every microphone is different, and 2, every person's voice is different. So each person is gonna need their own EQ. So if you're shooting like a podcast or something and you have 2 different people speaking on 2 different microphones, you're gonna do each of the first 4 steps for each person individually. So you're gonna set their levels differently, you're gonna EQ them differently, and you're probably gonna compress them differently. I guess I should cover sweeping in a basic way real quick. Let's do that. So when you're listening to the audio,
screens render colors,
you can pull any of these up,
so how bright do they make
and then
the bright
listen
parts,
to frequencies that you don't like the sound
everything
of.
In between. So we have to choose, do we optimize for
And
LCD,
there's one right
for OLED, or somewhere in the middle? Nowadays, I always optimize for OLED personally. I think OLED or some contemporary form of OLED is the future. It's
this
what
part sounds a little harsh here.
It's what most high-end TVs and monitors are using nowadays too. So sometimes I'll have a client that'll tell me, it looks great on my phone, but when I watch it on TV in my
I'll probably
living room, everything looks really
make it a little more targeted.
Or washed out,
okay.
as we call it.
So let's just say we're happy with that. Next, we're gonna go to the compressor. And what the compressor does is you set a level at which if the audio goes over, it starts pushing it back down. The threshold here sets that level at which when the audio goes over, it starts getting pressed down. And the ratio is how hard it presses it down. And we don't even really need to touch these other options here. So we'll just turn on the compressor. And a general rule of thumb for podcasts or spoken audio like this is you want to have a ratio of about 3 to 4. Now, if the audio is very dynamic, you might have to compress it a little more. If it's been recorded really perfectly and clean and it's very even, you might have to compress it less. So let's just set this to 3 just for the sake of this video. We'll just go 3 because this is an easy environment. You're gonna play your audio, and this graph here is gonna tell you how much decibels it's reducing your audio by. So we're gonna lower the threshold until it's generally around like -3 to -6. And we can see in our output, we're generally around, -11 or something like that. Let's try to go up to like -6 so we could do what's called the makeup, where it raises the overall volume of everything. Somewhere around -6 here. And that's it. So we can just close our compressor window here. And then we're gonna come over to where it says bus 1. This is where all the audio is fed into one final track where you can put more effects on or mess with it more after everything's all combined. And we're gonna come over here and click on this and go down to dynamics and hit limiter. So why is the limiter important? So basically, each of the social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, I think they all prefer the same thing basically, but they want your audio at a certain level. They want it loud, but not too loud. So to maintain the quality that we've gotten out of all of our processing, we wanna max it out, get as close to maximum as possible without going over, or else YouTube or one of these other platforms will compress the audio. And anytime you have something like that doing compression on your audio or video, it's going to reduce the quality. So I could just tell you that YouTube likes the ceiling right here at -1. I take it down to -2 just to be safe. It's plenty loud. So we're going to set this to -2.
Nowadays,
And when we play our audio, what we're going to want to do is raise it as close to this blue line as possible. Just only having it cut off the tops occasionally when we get a little too loud.
But when I watch it on the TV in my living room, everything looks really light and colorless, or washed out as we call it. And yeah, that's just the way it goes. They might have picked up a
something about like
from
this,
Costco or gotten a hand-me-down or something like that. Their screen.
And that's it, pretty simple. So if you were doing a podcast with two different people talking, you would EQ them separately and compress them separately, and then they would be fed into this same limiter. And hopefully, since you have everything pretty even, it'll just bring up the volume of everything to the maximum without clipping, and it should affect them both the same. And just try not to stress out or worry about it too much. It's going to take you a little time to develop your ear. It might sound good on your computer, and then you watch it on your phone later, and you might think, oh, I could probably make some adjustments, take down the highs a little more, or bring up the lows or whatever. And with a little bit of practice, you can get your budget mic sounding pretty good. So here's an example of our $1,700 setup. Okay, in this video, we're going to cover a quick, easy, and free way to make your microphone better with audio processing in 5 easy steps. And here's an example of our $200 setup. Okay, in this video, we're going to cover a quick, easy, and free way to make your microphone better with audio processing in 5 easy steps. Okay, in this video, we're going to cover a quick, easy, and free way to make your microphone better with audio processing in 5 easy steps. The most important thing is that you're making content in the first place. So good luck on your content creation journey, and we'll see you next time.